Meeting of the Scituate Board of Health, Monday, June 12, 2017. Selectors Chambers, Town Hall, 6 p.m. Take a motion to open the meeting and accept the agenda.
Motion to open the meeting on Monday, June 12th, and accept the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First up, are we going in order?
Yes.
First up, scheduled items, discuss/vote non-compliance with Town of Scituate BOH supplementary rules and regulations for disposal of sanitary sewage, Septic Pro Incorporated. And who do we have from Septic Pro?
Michael Walsh.
That would be Michael. Why don't you come sit up here, Mike, and just so everybody knows who you are. Please.
I'm Michael Walsh. How are you?
So, Jen, you want to fill us in?
So one of the requirements of the local septic regulations are that any licensed pump and hauler in the town provides monthly records no later than the 10th day of the month following the work that was concluded. The regulations go through the details of what needs to be included on those records. It has been a very difficult process trying to get records from this particular company. The difficulty started in 2016. They have continued in 2017. Numerous requests have been made by me, by letter, by email, personal conversations, and those records still fail to arrive month after month. So finally, we hadn't received January through April, so I requested that they come before you now to discuss the status of their permit to operate.
All right, so, Mike, you obviously know why you're here.
Yes.
Without trying to, for lack of a better term, come down hard on you, you're gonna do a better job
Obviously.
of giving Jen what she needs. And that's the bottom line, because we're not up here to take your ability to do business away in this town, and all she needs is simple public records and complete public records. And I all know everybody has stuff to do all day, every day, with family and business and so on and so forth. But just do us a favor by please, A, respond to her,
Yes.
because your livelihood comes from this, and B, just give her what she asks. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. I realize that you didn't come to the last meeting when you first called in,
Yes.
whatever the excuse may be, but the bottom line is you gotta keep up with whatever she asked for, because we don't wanna pull your livelihood, and that's the bottom line.
I understand.
That's the last thing anybody wants to do, especially in a small town like this, so.
Okay.
Is there a problem with anything?
No, I'm just like overextend myself, and it's kind of the little things that you're like, oh, let's take 5 minutes to do, and they just get pushed off, and
That's what
and it's
happens.
just honestly just procrastination on my part, and I've taken some action to get it under control.
But if that's the case, and that's fine, everybody, like I said, everybody's got stuff to do and everything goes on. If she calls you, emails you, just respond to her. Just say, Jen, I can't do it today, I can't do it tomorrow, I can't do it till next week. As long as she knows, because then what happens is same thing in whatever you're doing in day-to-day. If somebody's not responding to you, it festers and it festers and it festers. And that's basically the bottom line is what's going on here, hence the reason why she called you in here.
Okay.
To not drop the hammer, but pretty much as close to dropping as the hammer as you can possibly get.
Okay.
Put it that way.
So where do we stand? Are we up to date now?
I have one from January that I completely forgot to do because I was pumping a sewer break, and I thought that it got sent to the sewer department because there was multiple people out there, and that's.
So
And that includes the bill that was because I was pumping for Bridgewater Pump, and the approximate gallons that we got because we were pumping off the ground. We couldn't really tell. And then I updated the one that didn't have a last name.
So you're clear on what has to be filled out in
Yes.
form, so there's no coming back, oh, I didn't understand the form.
Yeah, one of them I didn't have a last name as the gentleman moved, but I actually had found a note that I had and filled it out.
Okay.
And then January's was a sewer break. I was pumping off the ground, so I didn't.
So let's be clear as to what this permit is for. This permit allows you to drive sewage through the town.
Okay,
So anytime you take sewage and you pump it and you move it,
Tax dollars.
that's the record that we receive.
Okay.
So whether it's pumped from the ground because of a break or because of, the maintenance associated with the septic system.
okay,
If you are gonna pump it and you are gonna haul it, we get the records. That's great that the sewer department has them because they're receiving the waste.
Yep.
So they need the records as well.
Okay.
For them, but we need to have an accurate record of what is being transported. This particular one in January is associated with a case. So this one is particularly important, not only for you, your business, and your permit,
But you as
having
well.
complete records, but it also allows us to do additional work that we need to do with other people. Without it, we're left with a big hole.
okay. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess you stated it pretty good. Bottom line is you gotta keep up with it, just like everybody else does, you gotta keep up with it. So when she asks for it, just give it to her. If we ask you to show up, just show up. Just like
Okay.
when you say you're gonna go shop, pump somebody's house out or a business out, just do it. That's the bottom line. It's the rules and regulations, it's the records that need to be kept, just like in any other thing. And that's all that we ask. So like I said, this is as close to dropping the hammer without actually dropping the hammer.
I appreciate it.
And to clarify too, it's not only you, I think there's 12 other people on that list, so everybody's following the rule. You're not being singled out
Singled
for
out.
Nope.
any reason. I just want to be transparent and,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So do we have a date to get everything? Can you set a date?
So we now have January through May, which is
Okay.
all he's required to provide as of today. As of July 10th, he'll be required to give us whatever records.
For June.
come
10th
for
or July
June.
10th? June 10th?
July 10th.
July
So as of June 10th, we
Right.
have June 12th. So as of June 12th, we are up to date through May's records, because you're
Perfect.
required to
Okay.
provide by the 10th of the month after you pump.
Good.
So our next receipt of information should be by July 10th, strictly for the month of June. And then it will continue after that, month by month, the
Okay.
10th of every month.
That's all we ask.
You want to see me again?
That's all we ask.
Okay,
Calendar reminder on the 9th.
Yeah, right.
And if you don't pump anything, a simple email that says, I have nothing I pumped nothing in Scituate in the month of whatever.
okay,
That checks the box, that satisfies the requirements. And
Okay.
that we put in our tracking spreadsheet so that we know if somebody says, hey, can you tell me when the last time my house was pumped? We'll be able to know with some certainty
yep,
that our records are up to date and that we can help the homeowners that have questions. And
Okay.
then we're able to tell them, oh yes, it was pumped, March of 2016 by Septic Pro. Okay, great. And then, they go on and they do their business with what they need. So it helps us help
Which is
others.
actually, when you think about it, it's a great record to have, because if there's a new homeowner
yeah, they don't know who it
on
was last
file,
time.
so they'd
Right.
probably call you back, because they'd say, yeah, this guy knows where the system is, he knows my house, I might as well stick with him,
Nice,
so, yeah, it's good business too, when you think about it.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Good.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Good luck, thank you.
How we doing?
Nice meeting you.
Take it easy.
Thank
Take it easy.
Take care.
All right.
Be good. All right, next up, new business, Jen's report, director's report.
All right, so a lot going on. We have 8 private well applications into our office. 6 have been received since our last meeting. In other words, 6 are trying to get in before, the new regulations get into place and, the siting requirements go into effect. So we have accepted those. Those are the last ones to be reviewed under the minor requirements that we had prior to, hopefully, today's adoption. Swimming pools, we have only 2 pools still to be permitted for the season. And then the responsibility will be to follow up on lab results that we require every other month to be submitted to us. So we follow up, just like we do with the pump and haul, we follow up with the lab results from the swimming pools to make sure that everything is good from a bacteria standpoint. Camps, we have one almost complete application received. So this week we'll be reviewing that application, getting the final pieces together with the applicant and going through everything that's needed to get them operational once school concludes for the year. Beaches, we're still in preparation for the season. We've been coordinating with the recreation department. This beach sampled when signs with the 2 exceptions are out and are posted, so we're coordinating with Highway to get the last 2 out in the right locations. We're in coordination with the lab for sampling and analysis, and then it's week by week and hope for a very safe and bacteria-free beach season.
Can you guarantee shock-free?
I could never guarantee shark-free. I can't guarantee bacteria-free, so I wouldn't want to make any bets on that
That could be a
either.
health hazard, too.
Yes, a very acute health hazard. Housing, we have 8 cases, none new. Nuisance, we have 5 cases, none new since the last time we met. Environmental, we have 6 cases, 1 new since the last time we met. As you may have seen through email and online, there was a diesel fuel spill on Country Way last week. A single vehicle drove the length of Country Way, wound up in North Scituate. Scituate Fire responded, Mass DEP responded. My contact at DEP alerted me to it in case I hadn't heard from other sources.
Was it a leaky tank? 5-gallon jug tipped over in the back of someone's car?
I believe it was their line. I don't know the
The fuel
specifics
line.
of that, but
So
yeah,
did
they
the other,
drove the length
did the other
of.
departments in town alert you?
I happened to see the roads being sanded.
Jesus, that much?
Yes, they sanded,
Go ahead.
they sanded the roads, which of course in the summertime makes you ask questions. So as soon as I saw the roads being sanded, I asked DPW if they knew what was going on, so that,
Because they did send an email out.
yes, because it was certainly unusual to see a road being sanded in the middle
But
of.
we did have a
the
nor'easter.
That's not the way you should, that's not the way you should find out, though.
Well, I was out doing inspections, so I think I made the call in before anybody could reach me when I came back to the office. So DEP called me, DPW and I talked. It was, I just happened to call them before they could call me because I was out there and I saw it. So all good there. So I'll follow up on, I know Clean Harbors was out doing the back work, doing the cleanup work. So I will follow up on that like I do with the other ones that we have and make sure that we get the copies of the reports that we're supposed to get. But all in all, everybody thankfully was in the right place at the right time, responded quickly, and they sanded the roads more for a safety hazard than an environmental reason. Septic is extremely busy with both new revised plans, certificates of compliance. It's definitely the busiest it's been in a little while. We currently still, we have 11 failures still on the books. We have 1 less than the last time we met, and 1 is almost complete. It's been installed, but we're still working through the certificate of compliance. So I don't take it off my list until the certificate of compliance is issued.
Complete is complete.
That's right. So there are 4 that are not necessarily working towards compliance that I am still working on and need the most follow-up. For food, I don't have a report on the specifics of the inspections since the last time we met a week and a half ago. I just haven't gotten the reports yet. But we are actively engaged on farmers market, trying to get folks permitted for that. Several temporary events have come in. We work on the soft serve ice cream tracking. So we're doing that on a monthly basis. And we've welcomed 2 new establishments. They've come online and opened in the last several weeks. And In terms of inspections, again, although I don't have the details, there were 21 inspections conducted since we met.
Okay.
That's what I've got there.
Okay, next up, old business, discuss/vote adoption of Town of Scituate private well regs. Again, Ms. Jennifer Keefe, Director of our Public Health here in Scituate. So where do we stand?
All right, so I sent you what I indicated was a final version on Friday afternoon for your review. With the intention being that you vote to adopt these regulations this evening. We've published in the required papers a summary of the regulations and the proposed plan to adopt them at tonight's meeting. The notice was printed in both the Mariner and the Patriot Ledger.
Correct.
So what I sent you on Friday has been updated slightly because you know I can't get away from the details. So I just wanted to walk you through what you have in front of you now is a clean packet of the final regulations with the following changes that I made over the weekend. If you look at section 2, first line of abandoned well, I changed the word criterion to criteria, which you'll see on your
Criterion.
just grammar, proper grammar.
I thought you were using Latin.
It is Latin-based. It is Latin-based, as I took in high school. And then I removed the extra spaces to be consistent with the other lists that we provide, so you'll just simply see a removal of the spaces between 1 and 6.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you go to page 2, second line of definition for complete application, after the words well driller's contact information, there was an extra comma prior to the semicolon. I removed the comma. Page 6, number 6, second to last line, I replaced approval for installation of a private well to a permit for a private well, just to simply capture the fact that we're permitting not just installation, but also decommissioning and repairs. I removed, so your clean version has removed from it the comment that you had made at the last meeting about the cross-reference of Title V and when a system is in failure versus what's needed for a well. So as I indicated to you, why I removed it after the question you raised was because after conversation with DPW engineering, kind of a brainstorming session about how to address your comment, we came to the conclusion, which is I think where you were going when we were talking, was that we don't want to conflict with Title V. We don't want anything that goes against Title V, but we also want to focus on what the well owner / well user needs to do. So in the appendix, which leads to your question about treatment, the appendix goes through, if you have elevated bacteria, you need to identify the source. It's you as the well owner's responsibility to identify the source and address that by treatment or any other means. Title V's responsibility is if the septic owner is having an inspection of their system and they see this well, then they need to sample it as part of the inspection. And then if the two coincide, then it's between the two to work out a solution. So
we inspired the state then?
what's that?
We inspired the state?
Well, I think this is we're focusing on the well and letting the state focus on the
Title
state.
V.
That's right.
Right.
So by the sampling requirements being fully covered, if there are exceedances in the appendix, it was covered and safe to take this part out and reduce the confusion.
Correct.
So that's what I did there. If you go to page 8, I removed an extra space between items 8.4 and 8.5, again, just for neatness. And within 8.5, the last line, it used to say, by the Board of Health or by the BOH for the tenants. I replaced that acronym with the board, which is the proper term in the definitions when referencing Board of Health.
Yeah, which is defined. So
Defined,
that's
exactly.
perfect.
Yep.
Keep it all as we said.
Simple, yep, and.
Consistent.
Consistent, thank you. 8, 9, I just, again, removed the space between the statement of 8, 9 and the list and pushed them in just for formatting. Oops. If you go to page 9, item 8.12, it looks as though we lost a few words. So the previous version said, if the water from a private well that serves as the drinking water supply for a building does not meet following laboratory analysis at any time.
Why is this not formatted the same as ours?
No, my 812 is on page 8.
Yeah.
So, sorry. I'm looking at the one that I marked up from the weekend. So what, I'm sorry, what number?
It would be page 8 down at the bottom.
Sorry.
Second paragraph on the bottom.
Okay, so I'm now, sorry about that, I'm now looking at your clean version. What I'm referencing is the version I printed out for myself on Friday.
Right, you took out
and then
some
marked it up.
spaces
Right.
and some
That's
stuff,
right.
so it
Yeah, so
compressed it.
It moved it.
Yeah.
So on your page 8, item 8.12, it used to say, if the water from a private well that serves as a drinking water supply for a building does not meet following laboratory analysis at any time. We lost some words there. So it now says, as you'll read it, if the water from a private well that serves as a drinking water supply for a building does not meet required concentrations following laboratory analysis, and then the statement continues. So we lost what it needed to meet. So we've added that back in. On, let's see, your page 9, item 8.14 was 8.15. So I just fixed the number so that numerically it corresponded to the one before it. In item 9.1, 1, 2, 3, third line down, I removed an extra space between the word tables and the number 1. Page 9, still page 9. Item 10.2, again, I just removed spaces. And then if you'll go to the final page of the regulations themselves before the appendix, so page 13, item number 21, I just cleaned it up. So the version I sent you for review on Friday, I called out the red line strikeout and highlighted the changes. So this is a clean version of what I sent you for review. So it provides the date that they become effective on, that we published a summary of them in the newspaper, that will be placing a copy on file at the Board of Health and with the DEP. And then I provided the signature lines for the two of you.
The three of us?
The three of you, sorry.
Okay.
Two of you. I was looking at a number 2 as I was talking. Appendix A. So that's your page, should be your page 14. I simply cleaned it up, made it, the version I sent you on Friday for review had a highlighted statement in the final full paragraph, Steve, to address your comment about treatment. About consulting well driller, water treatment expert, and then also, you know, that's referenced in tables 1 and 2 as well.
Well,
And
if you get
then-
an A for
sorry.
English, that's sure. Because you caught things that Only a teacher would have, only a teacher would have.
Well, and here's the big one that I caught that kind of made it all worthwhile. If you can go to page 16, it's table 2, which is the water quality testing
Yeah.
required initially and every 10 years. If you look at the gross alpha screen, the version that I sent you on Friday indicated that the gross alpha screen's limit was 15 picocuries per liter. However, if you look at the figure on the next page, which gives a guide, the gross alpha screen initial value should be 5. So if you get a gross alpha greater than 5, then you go to the next step and you measure radium.
Radium, yeah.
So I lowered that from 15 to 5, so that they were consistent and in line. You will see that 15 does come up later on in the chart, that if gross alpha is greater than 15, you also need to measure for uranium. But the smallest value at which triggers additional action is 5. So I changed the table to be 5.
Okay, so I know that there's, do you have anything to say regarding these? You're just observing today? I know Mr. Bjorklund has something to say. So before we discuss approving these and making these good to go, Steve, why don't you come up here and tell us your thoughts? Seeing how you're the only one here.
I have no idea why I'm the only one, because I don't think anybody knows what's really in here, so.
Okay, so
Probably gonna be your last wells in town will be the 6 that you have in front of you before these regulations go in. But just a couple of, and I don't wanna completely nitpick everything to death, because I know you spent a ton of time on it. But Jen did mention that she doesn't wanna conflict with what the state is doing. And just quickly, you only can supply water for one single-family dwelling. So if you're building a duplex, you can't have a well.
Where did you grab that from?
So if you go, what page are you on, Steve?
I'm on 4.2. One well per building is allowed. Further, no private
So there
drinking
you go.
water well shall be used to supply more than one single-family dwelling.
So if you have
And I
a-
may have an older version, because when you were going through your numbers, I don't know how, it's a moving target, I know, and I apologize for not having the most up-to-date, which I think was just
We just got
today.
it.
Right, so I apologize for not having today's anyway, but I'll try and
If
go
actually,
through a
if
couple.
you want to,
Well, I'll have to find the stuff again if I do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try and go by the numbers that you have in here, and if
So-
I'm incorrect, just let me know.
Yep, so 4.2
4.2,
says
yep.
only one well per building.
Yes,
That's part of it.
yep,
No private drinking water wells shall be used to supply more than one single-family dwelling.
Yep.
So if you have 5 single-family dwellings, you cannot use one well to supply all 5 houses. That's what that means.
okay, why
It's
would that
one-
be?
Why would that be?
Yeah.
Because shared wells, so, to the best of my knowledge, based on conversation, DEP is trying to get away from shared wells. And if you have a problem, if you're installing a well now, you're putting 5 homes at risk instead of just one if there's a problem with the drinking water supply.
Well, if we have the new regs, I would hope that we're not putting people at risk. I would hope that they're all going to have good tested water every single year once these regs go in. Because there's more stuff in
well,
here
I
to
think
make
the
sure.
idea is if one well goes bad, 5 houses
That's
are going to
right.
be conflicted with it, whereas each house
That's
has
right.
separate wells, then your chance of contamination may be for one, affecting one house.
That's right.
That's the mentality behind that.
And it's also about the property too. So if the well for my house is sitting on your property and one of those houses gets sold, then what?
Right, what happens when that,
If
what
I own
happens
a
when that
duplex-
pump 300 feet down goes, and you have 5 houses that don't have water?
All right, first of all, let's go back to the duplex where I started.
Okay,
I'm an investor, I want to build a duplex house and I want to put a well in.
okay, well, before it finds this place, you know better than anybody, there's a lot of other places you have to stop first before that happens.
Yeah.
So,
But the duplex is one building, so it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
one building, so it's
One
covered.
single-family dwelling, okay?
That's
So-
a private drinking water well. So a well that is connected to your house to supply your drinking water. Yes.
So you can do it with a duplex, even though it says one single-family dwelling. Because if you look at the definition of a single-family dwelling, it
Yes,
does not include a
yes,
duplex.
because one well per building is allowed.
So even though it's a duplex, you're only gonna have one well
So
Right,
you
you're
can
gonna have one
remove
well
where it
on that
says
property.
single-family
Right,
dwelling.
I see where Steve's coming from, it's the single family, there's a
It says
conflict of
single-family
definition.
dwelling. A
I'm
single,
not following. I'm sorry.
Well, because it
one,
Well, duplex is a
drinking well.
duplex.
That's right.
would be two families.
that's
That's
a
right.
two-family
In one
dwelling, not a
building.
single-family dwelling. It's two families living in the dwelling.
Right.
The regulation says single-family dwelling.
So he would have one well, but it feeds to the two families.
Two families.
Well, I guess
That's what it is.
that house is gonna have to hook up to town water then.
Or you come in for, or you come in
Or
for
we could change
variance.
the
Or you come in-
regulation.
Or you come in for a variance.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of duplexes in the pipeline right now, Steve?
I have no idea, and again, I don't, but somebody's probably going to, and they're gonna
They
come
might.
in.
Well, then they can
might.
come in
They
for a
might.
variance.
Right, they might, they can come in for a variance, but that is something definitely, with the amount of wells and the amount of houses that are in this town, that is definitely cross that bridge when you come to it.
Okay.
Because it's one out of, you know how many you build, you know how many the other developers build.
Okay.
I mean, you're not,
I own a single-family dwelling and I have a septic system. My neighbor comes in front of the board and they're coming for a variance and they want to put in a well 99 feet from my septic system.
And
That's-
the answer is no.
Okay, now wait a minute. So they come in for a variance.
correct.
They get the variance and something happens to their well, okay? It gets contaminated. My septic system has failed.
That's true, but who says we're gonna give them the variance if it's at 99 and a half? I mean. that's-
Whatever it is,
but
I'm
again-
failed.
But again, this is
Well, they shouldn't, they,
very hypothetical stuff.
Well, but these regulations you're putting in, they mean something
And
when they go in, they're
and that's-
official.
Of course, and that's why the last page, when we sign it, says they can be amended, supplemented, or repealed from time to time by the board. That's why that's in there. That's why there's variances. You know that, Steve.
Okay.
You know that better than anybody.
As well as the variance that's granted to the person who puts the well in can be revoked.
Well, of course,
Right.
we can remove
Okay,
variances.
so I'm just trying to figure out if they put a well in and my septic system contaminates it, this says my septic system is in failure. That's what this regulation says.
so 12.4.
Why, if your septic system contaminates it, then yes, it probably is in failure. Wouldn't you agree?
I think their well is in failure, because their well isn't going to meet these regulations.
So this is the exact conversation that was drawn by the comment you made at the last meeting. So if you, because Steve, I think you have the version that I probably sent on, to them on Friday, so bear with me.
4.8.
Yes, so that was removed. That was removed, so that Title V could deal with Title V and the well could deal with the well. So I had a long conversation with a member of DPW Engineering to brainstorm that particular topic,
Okay.
as I just said.
And again, I
So-
apologize for the regs
No,
that
no,
I
that's
have. I'm
fine.
just
No,
reading what's
perfect.
in here.
Yep.
So obviously, the comment that I made a lot of sense, because you changed it.
We did.
Okay.
Yes. So to be clear, so the conversation that we had, to address what was originally Russell's comment, same topic,
Yep.
was my original intent by putting that in there was to provide the crossover between Title V and the well regs, so that we didn't conflict. But by putting that in, and the conversation that we had at the last meeting, and the conversation I had with engineering, was that the well regs, and looking at Appendix A, which hasn't changed with the exception of that number. Appendix A says, if you sample your well and you find that you have exceedances, it's your responsibility as the well owner to figure out why and to get it corrected, i.e. treatment. If through that course of that due diligence, you're trying to determine the cause, you discover that your next door neighbor has a septic system that's been there for 65 years, and you put your well in, that shouldn't necessarily make that system fail, that you as the well owner need to address your
If it's
problem.
out, that's great. That's exactly what it should do.
I just
Okay,
wanted
but
to
that's
give
not what
you
it said.
that, yeah, I
Okay?
just wanted to give you that background.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's perfect.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't want my septic system to fail because somebody puts a well in, and now all of a sudden I'm contaminating them because you gave them a variance to
We
put it too
checked that.
close
Right, right.
to my septic system.
Right.
Yep.
That-
It's their responsibility if they're the ones that are putting the well in. I shouldn't be penalized with my septic system.
Right,
That's
so we addressed that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. What
And
else?
again, if you want to double check and take a look at these,
Again,
I don't mind-
I really
I-
apologize, because I probably should have come to more meetings through the process. I go to a
Probably
lot
go
of
to
meetings.
enough meetings.
Unfortunately, you haven't seen me that much, but I go to a lot of meetings in a lot of towns.
Boring here, you don't want to come here.
Yeah, no, well, I wish I did. And I wish I had the chance to look at.
But do you want to take a look at it quick, because I'd...
It's not going to happen in 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah.
type of stuff that I look
But most of the
at,
stuff you saw, we've addressed, and this would be the clean copy, so that way you could see it, that it was removed.
is there any way that this board would wait until the next meeting to vote them in finally?
I think we've been working on them so long.
How
So
many
it
more
wouldn't do me
things
any
do you
good to have it.
How many more things do you have in your hand?
How many what?
How many more things do you have in your hand right now on that copy?
Oh, I've just started to go through them. That's why I'm saying, I apologize. I was just handed these a little while ago. And I don't want to go through, I mean, I should hopefully have the opportunity to look at that, I would think, but I don't want to put you guys out either.
Yeah, we went through it
I hope
without
variances are going to be
lights.
really
I mean,
easy
it's-
for people to get. How's that? Because
Let me ask you a business question. How many houses you're developing right now are you actively thinking about putting wells in?
I'm not.
Okay,
And
I'm
again, I'm not necessarily here for me, okay?
I understand
I'm here
that.
for the regulations.
I-
Jim will attest to that. I just want to make sure when they go in, it's not going to be hurting people in Scituate that want to put the wells in. Nobody in Scituate, except for the 3 people and you, have probably read these cover to cover and understand everything that's in
More than
them.
once.
And that, I just, again, I'm looking out for the people that are going to be coming for wells next month
So
and
we-
next year.
So-
That's all.
So to hopefully give you a little bit of comfort, or a little bit of background, this is our 12th meeting
Yeah.
about these regulations. Yes, we've met 12 times with these regulations. And anybody who has come to us for well applications within the last, at least since Joan started, so it's been 3 months. Within the last 3 months, people who come in for applications or come in to submit applications, we are very upfront with folks saying, these regulations are going to be put in place. As drafted now, these are the big picture items. So, and if people wanted to see the drafts, we made copies of the
Yep.
drafts for them.
Yep.
So that they would understand where they fit in, not only currently, i.e. should I put my well in now or should I wait? And if I put it in, what's my responsibility later on? I.e. there's a section, just like a Title V inspection, that at transfer of property, you have to have the well sampled, or it has to have been sampled within the last year for whatever the requirements are for the sampling. So that is something that many towns have been putting into place, and we're kind of following that lead. And I don't misquote me, but I believe it is something that in my myriad of conversations with the state, they're also recommending in their upcoming guidelines to protect folks and their drinking water supplies. So we have been, anybody who comes in, we have been alerting them, at least what we feel are the major changes that are coming to the current system versus the future system. A lot of well applications that have been coming in, the engineers have had the foresight to take our draft setbacks and conform to them to the best of their ability based on the property owner, so that they're kind of ahead of the game without that requirement for siting.
Yep.
Especially where we were more
Stringent.
health orientated as opposed to restriction for building. I don't think that was ever really a discussion on this board. I don't ever remember that. It's all health orientated.
Yeah.
So it's,
Well, and again, I hate to nitpick. What's the definition of adjacent grade?
What page are you on?
I'm on 4.59. And I'm trying to figure out what that's all about, I guess.
5.
4.59, which is the grade adjacent to a well shall slope at least 2% to prevent accumulation of surface water. Well,
So it's no-
2% for a foot, 2% for 10 feet, 2% for 50 feet? What's adjacent?
Well, Jason means across,
So across the well, which is 6 inches wide,
doesn't it?
okay?
So the
Adjacent's
I
land.
think the idea is it's got to be capped up a
That
little
it's
bit.
not flat, that it's not flat.
Gotta
That
be
the
capped
land,
up
that
a-
the land is not flat
Yeah.
next to it, allowing surface water
to
to
puddle.
infiltrate and
A
puddle.
pool.
Exactly.
A
Right.
foot away from it, 10 feet away from it, 50 feet away from it? How far do you have to have a 2% slope away from the well itself?
Well, that all depends on your guidelines and your setbacks now, doesn't it?
No, because it says here it has to be 2% adjacent to. See, your regulation is telling me I have to have a 2% slope for no distance.
I think anybody installing the well is going to understand the intent is not to have it puddle at that point.
Again, does that mean that you can't have a puddle immediately adjacent to the well itself? Can it
You
be
don't want it
5
around
feet
the well,
away?
right.
Can it be 10 feet away? How far do I have to, not me, how far does a person have to grade from the well at a 2% declining grade to not trigger that? And you have to meet that setback. Everything else is 500 feet, 100 feet, 15 feet, 10 feet.
Well, there's got to be some common sense here, Steve, because if you look at it, you could have 2% grade falling away from it for 50 feet, and it'd be in a valley. It's going to flood. I mean, you know, you're doing the best you can to keep it from puddling at the
And I
well.
think the installers know best what needs to happen in putting and capping the top of that well.
Well, what happens when the installer is doing that is he's basically putting a casing in Scituate, because there are artesian wells that are going in. The casing's going down to bedrock. So if it's sitting in water, it's not going to make a difference.
Correct, but the idea is not to have a puddle sitting on the top of that.
Okay, so it's
Let's have
completely up to the installer's discretion as to how far he should take that 2% slope.
So there is a
Yeah, I would say
section.
so, because they're professional and they're licensed. Yeah, I mean, we have to trust an engineer when they come in to design a septic plan, because they are licensed by the state. So there's certain guidelines. We're giving guidance. You've got to trust
Again, all the
you've
other
got to
ones are
trust your,
specific distances that you have to do
you've got to
something.
trust your licenses, you know?
And there is a section in here, and I can't pull it out at the top of my head. Actually, maybe I can.
I get what you're saying, but at some point, you gotta, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
got you.
said, the private well, so this is 7.1. The private well shall be installed by a certified well driller who should take into consideration the methods detailed in the EPA's manual water well construction practices and Mass DEP's private well guidelines and any other applicable requirements regarding installation. So that's kind of the you know, well drillers.
Sounds like all you need for regulation,
So the well drillers,
for anything.
the well driller's professional judgment in terms of, you know, best
You probably would have had a
practice.
really fun conversation in here when we had a couple professional well drillers here that were feeding a lot of good information to the board. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd come in for that. And again, I don't have a proposed well, but I just don't want to see people get stuck.
Totally understandable.
The
Once you put a
regulation-
regulation in, it's law, so to say, so.
Again,
no,
you have 15 different setbacks, and then there's no number under, at least in my copy, there's no number where it says, when possible, private well supplies shall be located in areas above the 100-year flood plain. So I'm assuming if you can't do them above the 100-year flood plain, you're not going to tell people that they need a variance.
That's right.
They're just going to be able to put them in the floodplain. If their property is partially in the floodplain and partially out, and they can meet setbacks, both of them, you want it out of the floodplain. But nobody's going to get hurt if they're in the floodplain in the town of Scituate, if they have to put a well there. They don't need to get a variance for
Well,
that.
some of those floodplains, you know, are just ridiculous, the floodplains.
Well, I do know, that's why I'm asking the
That's why, again,
question.
that falls under the common sense. Right, I know.
Yes.
Regulation and common sense don't really go together quite often.
As written.
Okay, they don't.
So-
I'm sorry, but they don't.
As written, so let's put kind of the legal hat on, when possible. Those are the
I
words
just think
that
you don't need
give
to
the
get a
leeway.
variance. In other words, you know, if I can help them to not have to come in and get a variance,
So it's,
That's fine.
it's similar to when, you know, a design engineer for a septic comes in with, you know, multiple local upgrades.
Yep.
And it's, I'm gonna put the house in the backyard because that's where I wanna put it. Well, if it can get further away from a tributary and be in the front yard,
Yep.
then we're gonna wanna see a design for it being
maximum
in the front
feasible
yard.
well
That's right.
installation. How's that? Maximum feasible well installation.
Right. So it's
So-
it's the same idea.
Okay.
You know, it wouldn't be prevented, but we wanna see the best possible location.
Absolutely. And that, there's no problem with that. If they're flexible enough that people can work with them, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I mean, if they're going to come in front of you, you know, you hate to see them crying on your shoulder, they're going to say, this is the best that I can do. And I'm hoping the board, and the board always has. I mean, as long as I've been doing this over 30 years, the Board of Health in this town has always worked with people to try to get septic systems upgraded, and they've been tremendous. I mean, for decades, it's been great. I just want to make sure it continues into the well regulations when somebody comes forward that can't meet these.
Like I say, I don't think any of our.
I'm going to leave it at
intent
one last comment, because I really don't want to go too far. It says in here under 4.4 that well may not be installed in a Zone A, an IWPA Zone 1, or Zone 2. What's the purpose of that?
Fully supported by Mass DEP
What's the purpose of that?
to protect the town's public drinking water supply.
Okay, so we don't want to have a person put in their own well, but the water that's under their property, you want that to make it to the public drinking water supply so that the town can treat it and then sell it back to the people.
I personally don't have any interest in who's selling what or who's buying what. This is one of the many topics that I discussed, or I shouldn't even say just that we discussed as a board and an agent. And as part of that process, I was requested to speak to other communities, that what are they doing, and also DEP. And through all of those conversations, these things were supported by the work being done in other communities to be protective, and also DEP and their guidelines.
Somewhere in the very beginning of the process, we decided to follow along with the state and what the state recommended. And we waited a long time because the state was reviewing and re-reviewing. So some of this stuff may have come from the state. Now, what their angle is on it, I don't know. Might be that if you put a well in, it's another source of contamination for the public drinking water. Could be, I don't know, I was never told that.
And it's
But
also drawdown.
It may be a drawdown too, but how much is one dwelling gonna draw down?
You got it.
And I get that, but if the state has said that, we weren't gonna go against the grain of the state. We were following their guidelines, and then if something became particular interest to the town of Scituate, then we would adopt it and look at it for our own benefit. But I think, unless told different, I think we were trying to go along with the state and not against their grain.
Well, before that though, before you really get in the state, she did her homework / due diligence very well, and getting well regulations from towns that are coastal and towns that are inland and towns on the North Shore and towns on the South Shore, all that have different types of water. Near coast you might have some brackish water. Inland you might have water that's coming from Canada and so on and so forth through the bedrock. So she did her due diligence of looking at all these different well regulations, and we tried to piecemeal it together on top of using the regulations from the DEP. So, as you had just mentioned, sometimes regulations don't go with common sense. We're only doing the best with the cards that we were given, we were dealt. And that's basically what we did here. Because we did take them from numerous different towns, put them all together, said this applies to a coastal town in Scituate that has X amount percentage of septic systems. This doesn't apply because when we looked at, I forget, Walpole or Norwood or something, which is 95% town water, you know what I mean, which didn't have a lot of septics. So we had to look at things that were pertinent to us and not pertinent to us. And that's basically the culmination of what you have in front of you today.
And
That
just-
make sense? On top of using the state's regulations, for better or for worse.
And if I can just
For better or
add,
for worse.
for just clarity, DEP and other communities are very supportive of the IWPA, the Zone 1 and the Zone 2 exclusions. We have added the Zone A simply because of our reservoir and the installation of a well and the risks that come from an installation of the well in the Zone A, i.e. bringing a truck with fuels and all sorts of other things and the installation that goes with that. DEP did not support or not support the addition or inclusion of the Zone A in my conversation. They said, that's entirely up to you, what you ultimately do. So the state conversation was supportive of, the 3 groundwater resources, and Scituate added in the Zone A because we have a Zone A. Some communities don't have a Zone A.
Hence the reason why we looked at all the different communities. So I'll ask the question. Is there any interest of extending it so Mr. Bjorklund can go over these with a fine tooth comb, or would you like to pass these and make these effective tonight?
No offense to anybody, but I'm ready to move. We've been on these a long time.
I asked the question, so I guess we're gonna vote on it.
And there is as you said earlier, there is the ability in the
It
future
says it
to
right
amend
here,
them.
and Stephen would just take it, everything as a case-by-case basis.
And at least in my view, so I've seen, looking at some of the other regulations that we've been working with, that if you're seeing more variance requests than not, then it's time to look at the
You just took my last
regulation.
comment,
Right,
which is,
right.
after this is in for a couple of years, and you find out what's happening, either there's no more wells going in town, because they're so strict, nobody wants to do them. I mean, I know what it's gonna cost just to prepare the plans for these things, let alone putting the well in. And that's gonna drive a lot of people to not put the wells in anyways. I just don't wanna see people in town not being able to put a well in if they wanna have a well. So if the board's gonna be open-minded at what's not working, and we'll come back to the table again, like, you
But
just
the
covered it,
reason-
Jen. I mean, that was my comment. Will you come back and look at these if they're not working, with an open mind?
Of course. The three of us may not be up here, but I'm
I
sure...
was just gonna say,
Keep you.
Oh,
We'll keep you, that's it.
let's fluctuate.
The three of us may not be up here, but as Russell tried to, said before, you know, we did these as more of a, not to come down with full regulations, but with using regulations to make sure that there's a health aspect behind this, because we did hear stories from the time we had the two well drillers and the research and homework that Jen's done of people getting sick because of kids running through their sprinklers or on well water, and different purposes, different situations like that. So what happened is, we looked at it that way. Maybe they're a little bit stricter, maybe we are being a little bit strict by having the well tested, either if you're gonna use it for drinking water or not for drinking water. I personally don't have a problem with that, because I'd rather have people spend money to test it than have some little kids get sick. And then the next thing you know, there's just a mess going on in town, and there's lawsuits and so on and so forth. So I think that we may be overcompensating by some of these regulations, if that's the correct word.
Lessons learned by others' mistakes, though, and I think
Oh,
we can
that's-
agree with that.
Yes, so,
You know?
and we heard the stories from the two guys, one from Marshfield, one from Hingham, that have lived it and breathed it and slept it for their entire lives. And there's no better resource or encyclopedia than those two guys that knew exactly what they were talking about.
And you know something, when you come back to them too, they actually asked for that, and they're well drillers, so I don't think, they were doing it from a professional
I'm
standpoint.
not against the testing end of it, absolutely.
Well,
No, but it was the whole
You have to be good
regulations
quality
thing.
wells.
It's the whole regulation.
It's the whole process. They were on board with what we were discussing, and they gave us a lot of input, and to me, it looked like, again, more restrictive, but they said, no, that's the right thing to do, which is very professional. That's the way it should be. They looked at it as a judicial standpoint and
I get
said,
where
yeah,
you're
we could
coming from.
slam 4 wells in on a lot and give you whatever water you want, but they were looking at it as from a health standpoint, and what's best for the water resource.
Yeah.
Without stopping it, because we did have people in here that didn't want anything. Eliminate the wells, eliminate everything in Scituate, and, you know, so,
No, and you'll-
I think we've...
Again, they're
yeah.
trying to stop irrigation wells and all that, you know, I kind of get it, I disagree with it, but I understand why they feel that that's the right
Why do
thing
you,
to do.
why do you disagree with it? So people over, the whole hubbub with what's gonna go on at the proving grounds, you disagree with anything that's close to those proving grounds, or somebody putting a portable well in?
Wait, I didn't say anything
I'm
about the
just-
proving
well, no,
grounds.
I know, but I'm citing an example.
All I said
I'm
was,
citing an
in
example. I know you disagree
all I
with
said
it,
is the
but
irrigation system. So an irrigation well, if somebody wants an irrigation well, or just an irrigation system that's even on the town water, okay? All I'm saying is I disagree. That I think that if you do it properly and you have time zones, I think that you'll end up using less water with an underground irrigation system if it's done properly and handled properly than somebody who's going to throw a sprinkler on their lawn and go shopping down the Hanover Mall for 3 hours.
Okay.
Well, it's
Okay.
rated.
So, yeah, and then they gotta come back and they got a puddle in the middle of the lawn, and the
Exactly.
puddle's right next to their
So-
well, it's too close, you
so
don't have a
I'm
2%
sure-
slope, you know,
Right,
you
I'm
got big
sure-
problems.
Right, exactly. I'm sure you're up early in the morning like I am. Just take a look, drive around town at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and see how many sprinklers are going, and look at the sprinklers when it's drizzling out, and look at the sprinklers just, they're going on for 20 minutes or half an hour for literally along the size of this room.
That's because
So-
they don't have the rain gauges set properly, that's what I'm saying, if it's a
Right.
proper system,
But that's-
they're fine.
Stephen, unless you're gonna go to every single house that you see that at, it has to come from a higher place.
The next time you see a sprinkler going on somebody's lawn with a puddle out
I
in
did,
front of
I
it.
said it
okay.
once, and it,
You probably see that a lot more often than you'd see a malfunctioning underground system in a new house. That's, and again, we
It's
can
possible.
respectfully disagree, I have no problem with that, but I've done systems that work properly and have the rain gauges, and they work great.
Okay,
They might
so-
water for 20 minutes, and then they're
but
done.
do they work properly
That's
for the first year, and then a year and a half when somebody else buys the house and they don't look into it and say, oh, wow, all I gotta do is just drain it come November, and then fire it up come the spring? without doing any proper maintenance, and then they're using 4 times as much water as they're supposed to.
I don't know, I had one for 15 years at my house, and every year the sprinkler guy
You
came out
are
and sent
an
it up for
anomaly.
me.
You are an anomaly.
I think we're getting a little off.
Because they blow it out.
Getting a
They come
little
out with a
off track.
compressor and blow it out, and they come back in the spring and get the system running again.
That's
But again, there's probably a lot more people that are running sprinklers on their lawns than there are irrigation systems in town.
I'm sure there's a ton of them, yes.
So, and again,
All right, that being said, time to move forward.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we can vote on it, correct?
Paul, gonna make a motion to
Yeah.
accept?
vote to
There is,
deny.
No, where is it?
should be the back page of your packet.
For mine.
Yep.
This one right here?
Oh, I read it.
If you must. Oh, let me read it first.
This is not it.
That's not it.
No, that's the pump hole.
And the other's the pump hole. John, where did the,
I do not have it.
Everything was in the packet. There wasn't anything attached to the old packet.
where did
Everything
the,
that you were looking for.
Oh, you have
It
to
might
wait
be
2
in your
weeks.
packet, Jen.
Nice try.
Motion to adjourn?
Nice try.
It's in yours.
it was just the executive action that we pulled out separately when we reprinted these.
I don't see it anywhere.
Do you know where that
Was
went?
it in your packet?
I don't.
I'm not worried about it.
That's what
All right,
about.
just-
That's
In the
okay,
back?
Just-
that's okay.
You want me to do it or you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Motion
No, you
to
gotta
it,
think you
just a
can as
motion to
chairman.
adopt.
Yeah, I make a motion to adopt the Town of Scituate private well regulations as set forth on June 12th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okey dokey.
And then if you could each sign,
Just one.
one copy. Because I need to send an attested copy to the state with everybody's signatures.
Do you need a couple of them, originals? Do you want a couple of originals?
We'll make copies before we leave tonight.
Okay.
All right,
Let me know
next
if you
up,
want it.
invoice approvals and meeting
originals then,
minutes
yeah.
approvals from the 15th and the 31st. Russell,
Doing
let's
that.
do. Appeals.
I want to do a couple of them that way. That way she's got an extra one. So, that-
And then, why don't you just start and then send them this way. And I do not see printed out meeting minutes.
No,
Okay,
they are still with me for review.
okay.
And then I think it's just this one.
Extra one, play.
Thank you very much.
So you are just here to observe. Would you like to introduce yourself? Would you like to say anything so if something goes on record? I know you've been sitting for a while.
Keith Wall, 200 Country Way,
I know who you are.
observing. My only question to anything that's happened, because I'm kind of new to this part of it, is that were those documents that you guys just voted on, given out in open meeting minutes long enough for the public for to have meetings after vote?
So we've
The
had,
updated ones. I know not the 5,000 that you've already gone through.
Yep,
Get
so-
to this point, but.
so we have had 12 meetings on this. They are available to anybody who wishes to see them as draft, has always been available to see them as draft. The current version as they go along. There is no specific requirement under MGL as to the length of time that the final regulation needs to be available to the public for review prior to adoption. The Mass General Law requirement is that we publish in a local newspaper
Bye, Steve. Good
the
night.
summary of the regulations, as well as the proposed adoption date, time and place of the meeting. So that was published, I believe, June 1st? June 1st in both newspapers. Sure.
Anything else, Keith?
Thank you for coming.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn meeting.
Second,
All those in favor, meeting over.
adjourned.